the market said was that we were worth 3 golden eggs. The goose, I'm reading verbatim from this slide, the goose was not valued. There's a picture of a goose with 3 golden eggs.
It says goose value 0? Question mark.
This podcast contains the arguably witty banter of two friends, Skippy and Douglas, that like to debate about investing. The content is intended to be entertaining and for informational purposes only, not investment advice. You should do your own research and consult a financial professional before using any of the information in this podcast, and especially before investing.
America isn't easy. America is advanced citizenship. You got to want it bad because it's going to put up a fight.
Is this a movie quote? I don't think I've seen this movie. I love America.
The American president? The American president?
No. What is that?
Okay. Oh, my goodness. You don't know what any of those words mean? These are
No.
very basic words. Oh, all right. Thank you for tuning back in. We are back, people, and we have quite a packed agenda today. We'll see how much we can get through, but we're fitting to talk about Polymarket, SoftBank, Scott Galloway, European football, aka soccer, and how they play. There's this paper, this academic paper that I dove into that we want to touch on. And for premium subscribers only, we have Inside the Trade, where we're fitting to talk about 5 stocks. Premium subscriptions, you can get those at skippydougals.supercast.com. Inside the Trade coming up at the end of the episode. Jam-packed, bro.
Jam-packed. I have seen The American President, but this movie came out in 1995. I'm supposed to remember a quote from this movie?
Yeah, you're supposed to remember a quote from every movie.
All right. Tell me about Polymarket already.
All right. So Polymarket, here's what they did. Maybe let me back up. This is based on a Wall Street Journal piece. So Wall Street Journal did some investigative journalism, and what they found was 1,100 videos that were posted by 10 creators between December 2025 and May 2026. And these creators were paid by Polymarket to create these videos. So in one side, I'll tell you what the videos are about in a second, but one side of this, you could say, yeah, that's advertising. You find influencers, you pay them to post videos, advertising. However, according to the Wall Street Journal, in 70% of these videos, it showed them placing bets that equaled $1.9 million in total, and the video showed them winning $900,000 from these bets, and they were all fake. So the creators never said this was advertising. Usually when you have advertising, people say, sponsored by Polymarket, I'm paid by Polymarket if you're a creator, something like that. They didn't. What they did was they just showed them betting. They showed what the bets were. And a bunch of them, they then showed like reactions of them winning. And they used fake headlines, like old, outdated footage that they would show to say how they won the bet. And it was all fake.
This happened 2 weeks ago, so it was slow to come back to me. This is outrageous and dishonest, and I almost cannot believe it. The fines should be massive, if not more significant. To get to the nitty gritty, how the Wall Street Journal did their journalism here is they looked at some of these bets that were placed. They realized that it's on a spoof website. It's not on Polymarket. It's on almost Polymarket.
Like POI, so it kind of looks like an L.
And then they went back to the trades and were like, so it shows the influencer. They're paying these influencers about $3,000 a month, it seems.
Yep.
It shows the influencer winning a ridiculous sum of money, right? And then the Wall Street Journal goes back to the live trades, realize that no one actually won that bet.
Yep.
Goes, what's happening here? Digs in more and uncovers this just flat lies that I know my teenager has seen online. I know that I have seen online. I mean, they make it seem like there's a free pot of gold available to you.
Exactly.
It's so dishonest.
And so I mentioned that it showed them winning about $900,000. And to your point, none of these bets would have won. They actually would have lost $166,000, according to the Wall Street Journal, if they'd made these actual bets. It's so messed up. And I think this is, especially with something like Polymarket, because if I take Polymarket and Kalshi, you've talked about the difference between them in the past. Polymarket's like banned in the country, right?
Yep.
In the US, you have to use a VPN to even get to Polymarket. And this was targeted at US users. So if you're banned in a country, maybe you have nothing to lose. I don't know. But I'm kind of thinking if you are banned in a country, having fake illegal advertisements toward users in that country is not the way to get in good favor.
It's outrageous. I'm trying to think of a good parallel. I don't know that I have one. But if the best you can do to get users to your platform, your company, whatever, is to lie to them, it probably tells you about the value you're providing to those users. In this case, their users are bettors, and they're not providing much value. Case closed.
And some of what they showed, some of these bets were Donald Trump is going to say the word McDonald's this month. Like, they're not even choosing bets that could add value to society. Maybe they're doing it on purpose because they're saying it's this easy. All you have to do is guess this word and then you win a bunch of money. But
did you just say add value to society? Betting add?
Yeah.
In what case does betting add value to society?
Have you watched March Madness and have you placed bets upon those games? I'm just like,
okay, touche.
I'm just
point taken.
All right, let's transition, reach into the fishbowl, and go to SoftBank's 46th annual general shareholder meetings deck. This thing is a pot of gold, and only really, I'm just going to cover a few of the slides. It's not actually a pot of gold, but I say that because the slides I want to cover have gold on them.
This is the first slide deck I've ever seen that is like public and professional put out into the world that I'm pretty sure they use like a very poor PowerPoint generator, like put in 3 slots and hit generate and then just talk through it. This slide deck is bizarre, man.
It is so bizarre. Okay, I got to walk you through this. So in this deck, at some point they start talking about how much value has been created by SoftBank over the years. So they say 16 years ago, the value of the equity holdings was 5 trillion yen. Okay, good. Then they go to this next slide that has the exact same verbiage, but now there's a picture of a goose with 5 golden eggs on it. I know this is hard to follow along audio, but I got to do this because it's so great. The next slide then has 2 of those golden eggs now whited out because of debt. They go, oh, we only had 3 golden eggs back then. But you know what the market did? All the market said was that we were worth 3 golden eggs. The goose, and I'm reading verbatim from this slide, the goose was not valued. And there's a picture of a goose with 3 golden eggs.
It says goose value 0? Question mark.
My favorite slide in this whole thing is, so the next slide, it then shows, now it's 74 trillion yen, and it shows all these golden eggs everywhere. Okay, but my favorite slide in this whole thing, it's on slide 50 of this deck, where there's this goose that has spread its wings like it is the master of the universe. And it says goose value was 71 trillion. So where they thought that these 3 eggs were everything, no, this goose is now 71 trillion. So then asks all the shareholders, what matters is not the eggs, it is the goose itself. True value equals the power to keep laying eggs. I don't think you need to say anything else to your shareholders if you just demonstrate that. When you talk about laying out fundamentals for people to analyze,
I apologize, but I'm not 100% clear on what they're calling the goose here.
the goose is the ability to choose great investments.
The
Like, if
goose
you go
is
to
their
slide-
genius. Yeah,
Yeah.
right?
If you go to slide 56, it has a goose, but now it's hollowed out so you can see inside the goose.
This is bad.
The next time that someone comes to me and says, why do you think we're in a bubble? I'm just going to send them this slide deck.
I've never seen, obviously we all get the golden goose reference, but I've never seen basically the power of investing, compounding, and exponential growth presented in this way, where it's like, no, this isn't because our capital creates capital that we can reinvest that creates more capital, right? It's not that sort of math, which I think investors easily understand. It's like, no, there's this magical thing that spits out golden eggs that has nothing to do with the power of compounding. What? I just don't get it.
And if you go to slide 57, now you will get it, because look under goose value.
Alpha. Goose value is alpha.
Market capitalization. This should go down like this is like fama in French. Just choose your mathematician that looks at investing. This is market capitalization equals egg value plus goose value. In their case, they're saying now our egg value is 74 trillion yen. Goose value is alpha.
I could rant and rave about this and how I disagree with the premise, but I'm not going to. It's not worth our time.
At slide, okay, this is the last one, then we'll go on. After all this goose talk, then on slide 59, it has this like smoky black and white grayscale slide. And the bottom just reads in text, is AI a bubble? You were going to walk me through all that and then ask me that question? Like, you better have asked me that completely separately before you just showed me the gooses and the eggs and the alphas. Anyway.
Okay, I'm going to keep it short. The whole market capitalization equals egg value plus goose value. Like, the fact that they have 74 trillion yen available to them that isn't invested now, that is the potential for future value creation. If they were just, I can't even do it. It's not worth talking about.
No, but I need someone to use this in an actual pitch deck, like when they're just starting their company and going to, actually, what I was going to say was, if the investor's like, yeah, your company's worth $1 million, you go, no, you're not valuing the goose. I just want someone to say that. Did you see any clips or did you listen to the recent episode of the, what's it called? It's Jason Calacanis's podcast, not the All In. It's like his.
Yeah. No, I didn't.
Yeah. This weekend. It's this weekend. He has a few VCs, like early stage VCs that are in there, and they're talking about current valuations and whatnot. It's pretty interesting. I'll send you a clip. Anyway. Okay. You want to go to Scott Galloway next? Reach into that fishbowl?
Please, let's continue topics that make me so delighted.
Go for it.
The number's easy. Take your burn. Take what you think you need every year to be happy. For some people, that's $60,000 a year. My dad, with Social Security, needed like another 10 or 20 grand a year to live the way he wanted to live. Some people need $1 million a year, and then times it by 25. Assume a post-tax return of 4%. And once you have 25 times the burn you think you'll need, you can start eliminating the should bucket.
And does that change over time? Because, your burn at the time when you probably first got secure was different than now if you're spending $3 million a year.
I've been very open about this. I think not talking about your money is an attempt to keep middle and lower income homes down. Rich people talk about money to each other all the time. I spend $300,000 to $400,000 a month. So if you take that at 5 million times 25, I need 125 million to be economically secure. And by the way, when I was younger, I thought if I ever have $1 million, I'm done. I used to think, like in my 20s, if I could ever save $1 million, I'm done. I'm going to start writing scripts for Tom Cruise films and just do whatever I want. And then as you get older, you realize how expensive kids are, how expensive it is to live in New York, how expensive it is to take care of your parents, and your taste and your greed glands begin to grow, right?
Okay, so this clip has gotten a bunch of flack, it seems like, in this past week or so. What's your reaction?
I think the tone is just so weird. I don't begrudge Scott or anyone else that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And as general guidance, the first half of that take is like, if you want to not worry about money for the rest of your life, get 25 times what you're going to need on a yearly basis, turn off that part of your brain and go enjoy life. It's reasonable guidance. Is it perfect guidance? No. Do I understand people that want it to be 3% withdrawals and stuff, 4% results? Of course. But
whatever.
Totally reasonable. But the second half of that piece, starting with when he says not talking about money is holding middle and lower class incomes down or something. Could we just spend 30 seconds on that? I don't know what that means even.
Here's my interpretation from it. Because when I first saw that clip and he said that, it immediately resonated with me. So I'll give you my interpretation, which may or may not be what he meant. I feel like a lot of times when there's I'll call financial literacy, financial education, not like in a classroom setting, but just that comes mass market. And it comes to folks who might be in that lower middle class bucket, whatever he's talking to. It comes in generalities without specifics. So it's kind of, let me give an analogy which may make this even more confusing. But I felt this when we were planning our wedding. I felt this. And I felt like all the things I was seeing was like, spend X percent on this and X percent on that. And I was like, what actually does it cost to get a DJ? Like, what is the amount? And I couldn't, like, it was hard to find actual numbers. And so then when we had ours, I had a full spreadsheet that had everything broken down as to what we got. And then other people that were having weddings, I just sent them my spreadsheet. And I was like, this is actually what it looked like. Like, there are a lot of platitudes you could have out there. I feel like that's what he's saying, is that typically when you don't talk about the specifics of money, all that you have is these percentages that are hard to add up and figure out what that looks like in real life. That's what I think he meant.
I like that you're on the other side of this, because the reason people talk in generalities is because it's a jerk move to say, I need $400,000 a month to live. Because the average income in America is what? Depending on how you slice it, if it's single or family or whatever, it's somewhere between 60 to 90,000. You know these numbers better than me, right?
Yeah.
But in that
around
range.
there. Yeah.
And to say you need like X times that a month, it just comes across as rude. Like, it's not. It's a slap in the face to so many people that work so hard that might not have. His wealth comes from selling a company, I believe, and real estate investments and some other things. Like, let's not pretend that Scott or anyone else in that situation did not have luck play a significant role.
Oh, of course. He would say that.
Their outcome.
Yeah.
I know he would. I don't know. It really rubbed me the wrong way. Listen, I host a podcast talking about investing. Like, I talk about money more than your average person, certainly. It just feels like a slap in the average American's face to be like, I need $125 million in the bank. Or
he didn't quite say he didn't say he needed to spend what he spends. I'm not trying to defend him, by the way. I'm just saying that if you take I get the slap in the face argument. I get it. If you take that, which is hard, but if you take that emotion out of it and just say, like, what's the tactical elements of what he's saying, I think that is helpful for people to talk specifically about money at times, although it's really hard. Like, it's because there's so much nuance, people are in different places. It's very emotionally charged, like, to the point of what you're saying. Like, someone could be giving financial advice that could be accurate, helpful, very tactical, but it can feel like the slap in the face if you're in such a different place, right? It's like such a different place. Like, do you remember, I can't remember if we talked about it on here or not, but you remember there was a point where one of my cousins he was living in a house that I was helping to support. And I was like, look, instead of paying me rent, put money into investments, put money into retirement. Like, I want you to start building your nest egg. And then I realized that he had like $100,000 loan that had an 11% interest rate on it. And I was like, oh, scrap all that, right? And you could see where if you're talking to somebody and you're talking about, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, you should be saving this amount. And meanwhile, maybe they don't bring up what's happening to them, but they're in a place where they're drowning in debt. That can feel like a slap in the face. So I get why it's hard, but I also understand that seeing the actual numbers can be helpful. I'm ignoring all the other stuff. I know.
In no point did your average listener feel better by him being like, oh, I need $125 million. That's the only way I can feel secure. The 25 times earnings, we can go to the more generalities about what you should do to pay down debt or how you should grow your income if you feel like your income isn't supporting the ability for you to invest in your future self and your optionality for your future. Like, personal finance is most importantly personal. And you're so right in the examples you just described that you need to talk through people and figure out what's actually going on with them. I just don't see surprisingly, it really rubbed me the wrong way that it was so flamboyantly $400K a month. Like, what?
I thought this would be, for you specific, that'd be helpful. Because one of the things I also took away was I was like, we're not doing enough with this podcast. If this guy has a podcast and he's spending $300,000 a month, then we need to do more to grow this puppy. I'm joking. No,
there's a weird fanboy element of it, of someone, not him specifically, but if someone brags about their wealth, they should be like more worthy of listening to or something. Like, that podcast should get more traction. You just talked about the all-in crowd. You know, like, I don't necessarily believe that to be true, because the people that hit base hits decade after decade are not worth $100 million. They're very wealthy, but they're not worth $100 million. That path to wealth, it has is a greater probability of success than these Mark Cuban-esque, I sold one company at the height of a bubble at the perfect time. Now, what Mark Cuban did, sorry I'm on a tangent here, with that is brilliant because he bet against the AOL stock he was given for the broadcast.com acquisition. And that's why he's still wealthy today, because he knew it was a bubble, right? So he deserves credit for that. But there's just, when you talk about the 0.001% of wealth or whatever we're talking about here, luck is like almost always the primary driver, in my opinion.
Okay.
People like Bill Gates, people like Zuckerberg were destined to do that. But those are the rare exceptions.
I will not push back against that. I think there are two different arguments that we end up or debates that we end up having coming out of this, and I get that. I think the absolute numbers that he threw out, I get the slap in the face. The tactical argument of looking at specific numbers is very helpful, and not talking about specific numbers is hurtful. I also get, but maybe someone that's not him doing that would be more helpful. And that's why I think, although now, when you get shows and there might be performative nature to it, I still think what Ramit Sethi, what he does I'll call it in theory, again, because I don't know what's behind the scenes when you start having shows, but that's why I think things like that are helpful. Like when he puts out, he's like, this couple makes this amount of money and this amount of money. And when we had the conversation, we said they should do this and this. Like that kind of stuff, I think is helpful for that reason.
I think that's incredibly helpful. That's like real life examples of how people live their life. That's not what Scott Galloway did here. So far, complete polar opposites. While I'm still on my tangent here, another person that was destined to be one of the 100 richest people in the world, as long as they didn't have a heart attack at 55, is Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett lived his entire life to be rich. Could you imagine if Warren Buffett was on some podcast being like, oh, let's talk through my monthly burn? Now, he's notoriously frugal and lives in the same house and eats at McDonald's. But could you imagine if he is out there like, well, so my numbers, $30 billion because I have to have a fleet. It just comes across the complete wrong way.
Touche. I'll concede this point. Touche. I'm going to make a little bit of an audible here because of something you brought up, though, when you were talking about the more rare occurrence of people becoming wealthy. I'm going to go to the paper, which we're going to cover a little bit later, but I want to get to that for a moment. So there's this paper that Skippy was kind enough to send over to me, and Hendrik Bessenbender from Arizona State University is the person that put this together, and he did 4 analyses using CRISP data to look at what happens in a few different scenarios with quote-unquote do-nothing portfolios. And the purpose of what he's saying, he says do nothing, he says people talk about you get a diversified portfolio, you just throw your stock certificates in a coffee can, let it sit, and boom, over time, you get wealthy. Well, let's test a few different scenarios of how that might play out. And thinking about individual stocks, so thinking about versus indices is what he's talking about. So there were 4 different scenarios he tested. And I thought that these were interesting, the last of which is the reason I wanted to come to this in the first place, so I'll try and get to that as quick as possible. The 4 analyses he ran is he said, if you take the S&P 500, but what are you laughing at?
I hate to interrupt. You mentioned movie quotes earlier. The funniest thing that's ever happened in the history of movies is in Dumb and Dumber 2 when the dude's been in a coma for how many years, and he opens a mailbox and he got it subject to Arizona State University. That makes me laugh every time. So sorry.
You watched Dumb and Dumber 2?
I did. And that joke is really funny.
I've never seen it, so I may need to go.
Oh, are you serious? So I mean, you need to see that before you can dive into this paper. Sorry, random tangent. All right. Dougal's, I was
back in an hour and a half.
So hard that
I'll be back in an hour and a half so we can talk about this research paper. I'll go watch it though. No one's ever recommended that movie.
I can't really recommend it other than the first 45 seconds is kind of funny.
Oh, that's the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, very beginning.
That saves me a lot of time. Okay, great. Okay, so he ran 4 analyses. The first analysis is if you take the S&P 500, and this is at the end of 1970, and you take all 500 individual stocks and ignore the index for a moment and just say, if you took those stocks and you invested in those stocks, one way value weighted, one way equal weighted, So one way is like by market cap weighting. The other way is you just had the same amount of each of them and held them forever, coffee can. What would happen? And what turns out there is that the value weighted basically matches what the index would do over time, which is one interesting thing. It feels not surprising, but one interesting thing. But the equal weighted outperforms over time. That's on average. That's what we looked at. So we'll skip past that one. The next is compare the do nothing portfolio in general to the overall index. We kind of just touched on that, so I'll skip on that one. The last two are the most interesting, and the last I really want to hit on.
Well, a quick caveat, if you're not familiar. So equal weighted means if you buy 100 stocks, you buy the same percentage of each stock. Value weighted means you buy like based on market cap. So you would buy, NVIDIA would be your largest holding when you buy, because NVIDIA is the largest company in the world right now, right?
Yep.
The rest of the top 10 companies in the S&P would be a significant portion of your returns. So equal weighting tilts towards smaller, less expensive companies.
Yep, that is right. That is right. All right, so then the third is, he said, what if you just held on to the largest stocks? So, and he looked at the largest 100, largest 50, I think largest 10, and then the largest stock, just one stock. Said if you held on to those, how would that compare over time? And basically, the fewer stocks that you own, the worse it would do. Mm-hmm. And that comes because you have, as he pointed out in here, you've got like IBM was the largest stock for a while, and it was going down by double-digit percentages per year for a while. The largest stock over time generally will not be the largest stock in the future. The largest 10 stocks will not be the largest 10 stocks when you go forward a decade, 2 decades, etc. So that is why. He did point out that over the last decade, that has actually not been true, because the largest stocks a decade ago are the largest stocks today, but historically over the 50 years before that, it was true. And then the last one, the last analysis, and this is why this is the one that you made me think of when we talked about atypical. The last one he looked at was, he said, what if you just chose random stocks? Like a random, and so he ran 5,000 different scenarios where you choose a random 1 stock, a random 10 stocks, a random 50 stocks. And the purpose of this was that he was trying to look at what inheritance would look like. And so if someone passes away in your family and they give you a stock portfolio of 5 random stocks, and I've seen this with folks where they say, I'm just going to let it ride. Like it wasn't mine in the first place. And you see these anecdotes where people, they have the one stock over 3 decades, it becomes millions of dollars, and you're like, let's let it ride. So that's why he wanted to run that one. And what he found, which will not be surprising to you, is that those anecdotes you end up reading about in the paper or in periodicals are the rarity. It is not typical that if you inherit your stock that Mama May gave to you back in 1975 and you just hold that for 40 years, typically you are going to vastly underperform the market over time.
Because your average stock underperforms. I mean, I don't know if people understand this, but the value of indexing is you are guaranteed to get the winners, because if you randomly select something, on average, it's going to lose.
Exactly. What he doesn't look at trading costs and tax costs and things like that. And so everyone's scenario is different, and how it ends up playing out is whatever it is. But for the purpose of this, what he's saying is that if you inherit that portfolio, you should certainly think multiple times about whether you let that ride or not. Because you're more likely, if you let it ride, going to underperform rather than selling it and buying the S&P 500 or whatever it might be. So I thought that was interesting. And again, the reason you made me think of it is because that's the rarity. But those are the anecdotes you see. When you don't look at people's real numbers. I'm joking. I was trying to get a little tie back there, but just really joke. No, but those are the anecdotes you see. You're like, this person inherited, they let it ride, made a bunch of money. That's the rarity.
Well, the other piece that's just worth hammering home, because tons of research has found this, is once your stock becomes one of the largest stocks in the world, its future return, the odds of its future returns continuing to outperform are not great.
Yes. There you go. There you go. That is true. Okay. Can I reach in the fishbowl and talk about European football?
Oh, please.
Okay.
You got to read this whole tweet?
No, I can't. I just can't. I can't read the whole tweet. It's a long tweet, people. What happened to the 40 characters? Anyway, 140 characters. All right. So European football, here we like to call that soccer. What someone put out, I thought this was a good tweet. I am not behind the scenes expert on all this stuff, so I don't know if you are an expert in soccer, you might tear this to shreds, but I still thought it was fascinating. What this person says, I'll summarize, is what he says is that European soccer, if you look at how they play a game of chess. And usually when someone says, oh, I'm playing chess, you playing checkers, they are saying that you're doing great, I'm not thinking things through. He means this differently. He means that it's highly rational. It is highly like strategic in a sense of being rigid.
Yeah, and analytical as well.
Yeah, analytical. So he's like, here's the number of passes we need to make. Here's what our structure is going to be. Here's the percentage of passes that have to be completed. And he says when other teams end up playing them, they're trying to score goals. And so you might have, we've seen this a couple times in this here World Cup, where we've seen like 60% possession for a team, many, many more passes, high pass completion rate, and you lost 2-1. And the thing that he is saying, and there is something that I want to read here, because there's probably some kind of tie to investing. I don't have that clean, but I made a tie to just thinking about other elements in life. He says, the game becomes increasingly legible. Every team occupies similar spaces, presses in similar ways, builds from the back with similar patterns, and minimizes the same risks. Systems become better at defeating other systems, but worse at dealing with players who refuse to behave like those systems. I think that's something to think about in everyday life. Another one I'll add on to it that I want to get your reaction. This is the danger of optimizing proxies. When everyone optimizes the same measurements, they stop optimizing for victory itself. They optimize for looking efficient.
Yeah, this has very little to do with soccer. This is just life. People try and find patterns, and they find patterns based on historical data. And then they look at characteristics that drive those patterns that they claim to be desirable. And then the game completely changes because everyone starts acting that way, which creates opportunities, right? So that the future becomes completely different from the past. Now, the first person to realize that the soccer team, to take it back, wants to maximize this pass efficiency in these locations on the field, et cetera, et cetera. That creates new, fresh opportunities to exploit. And what's happened in all of sports with the analytical movement, and I'm an analytical guy, is it's become such a math problem that people just forget sometimes, like, the strongest will actually wins. Or sometimes, I mean, the Knicks that just won the title, by the way, congrats to me, MSG shareholder over here.
Did you get a dividend? A special dividend?
Sorry, I get a ring. I'm pretty sure it's. I think it's in the mail. But
and Taylor.
I know. I made money from that too. What can I say? I'm insufferable. I'm sorry. It just like that team was not the perfect team. That team was tougher than a lot of the other teams.
Yep.
Riding a cultural movement. Can you talk to me about what it's like when your team hasn't won a title in 57 years and you live in the most passionate sports city in the world, or one of them, and tickets are going for 10 grand? Can you talk to me about the analytics of that? You can't.
10 grand? You mean 165 grand?
Well, whatever. You get the point. So in life, the pendulum swings too far one direction. I think that's happened in sports, and I think the World Cup is a great example of that swinging back a little. And sometimes it's just, gosh, we've all played the pickup game with some crazy lunatic who tries to run you over, and the skill matters less.
Yeah. There's this, it's the hardest thing for me personally to play against when I'm playing poker, is like doing the math on percentages for when do you bet, what's my hand, all that kind of stuff. And you have someone sit at that table that just like pushes a few $100s in every pot, no matter what's going on. And I'm like, right? You just go, whoa, well, that's a different style. Like I came here with a knife and you came here with a bazooka. I should probably just go to my room and drink some water. Anyway.
For sure.
All right. Inside the trade time.
One quick hit, just because I want to mention it. I read Money and Me by John Clements, who sadly died from cancer recently. So this is like a book that's fully transparent because he's on his deathbed as he finishes it. One just incredible point that I've never heard anyone make ever is this. He calls it a tipping point. And this could be for a retirement account. This could be for a personal investing account, whatever. If you decide to put a constant, like if you decide to put money aside every 2 weeks, every month, whatever, your first decade or so, you won't feel like you're making much progress, right?
Yep.
But based on his math, at about year 12, with average stock market performance, that's when your investments start putting as much money back into the account through capital gains and dividends as you've been contributing for the past 12 years. Yep. So if you start investing and you feel like it's a slog and you never feel like you get ahead, all I'm trying to say here is if you do it and you're disciplined around it and you get to that year 12, basically at year 12, it's like a whole nother individual starts contributing what you've been contributing for the past 12 years. And then the exponential growth that happens from year 12 to year 24 on down the line just becomes explosive, because pretty soon your capital is generating more reinvestments than you could ever dream of generating based on your current earnings. So just a good point that I wanted to mention.
Really helpful. And there are two takeaways that I have from that. The one is what you were just stating, of just knowing that is the case, I think is helpful by itself. The other that came to mind was, this takes me back to thinking about adults going to college. Okay. Adults. So that means like you're not the 18-year-old necessarily going, but it's a little bit later in life. Okay. You know what the number one predictor of whether or not they will end up getting their degree is?
No idea.
The amount of time it will take them to get the degree. The reason that is the case is because life gets in the way. Because if you're taking 1 credit, 2 credits, something like that, 2 classes, which like because of life, you're busy, like that is an understandable thing, and it's going to take you a longer period of time, it's more likely that someone in your family gets sick or something else happens. And so like you just get disrupted. Okay. The analogy, the reason I brought that up is because here there's one side of thinking about compounding where you just want to say like it'll take 12 years. So just know that. And there's another side that says, depending on when you start, the likelihood that you can continue that 12 years without something trying to get in the way increases the later, like the longer you wait to start. Like if you could, and not everyone might have the ability to do this in a meaningful way, at least, although we will have arguments, against that. But like if you could start at like 18, and so you have 18 to 30, and at 30, you start to see that difference before you might get to the point where you're trying to buy a house or have kids or whatever. And all these things are nuanced depending on the personal part of personal finance. That's different than if you start at 27, now you have to wait till you're almost 40 before that tipping point happens. It's psychologically much harder.
Yes, completely. But automate it, do it as quick as possible, and don't even think about it till year 12. Because at that point, there's almost no turning back, because it becomes so obvious that like free money is raining from the sky. That's the best analogy I have, sorry. That you're like, why would I stop?
That's like Polymarket.
Exactly. All right. Inside the Trade, this is for premium listeners. If you want to grab a subscription to support the show, we always appreciate that. You can go to skippydougals.supercast.com. There's multiple tiers here. We're going to talk about 5 names, and I think they're fascinating names. I love parts of all of them, but this is what we do as friends for each other. We throw some ideas on the wall and see what sticks.
Yep. All right. Everyone else, appreciate you listening, and I'll see you next week. Subscribers, stick around.